I woke up, it was the next afternoon in the hospital. I had got caught in a rip current, and it dragged me across the bottom. I had scratches from all the shells and rocks and all this. Luckily, a Navy SEAL was down there. I heard the people screaming, went out, and he said that I was about 400 yards out from where we were and 200 yards down the beach from where we started, and I was purple and floating on my stomach.
Welcome to Life on and off the farm, brought to you by Cherokee Farmers Cooperative, right here in the heart of Center, Alabama. I'm your host, Seth Eubanks, and each week we're diving into the stories, the people, and the work that make up life on the farm and beyond. Here at Cherokee Farmers Co-op, we're not just about farming, we're about community, tradition, and innovation. Whether you're a lifelong farmer, a newcomer to agriculture, or just curious about rural life, this podcast is for you. We'll explore the latest in farming techniques, the challenges our local farmers face, and how the co-op is supporting sustainable agriculture and the local economy. But it's not all about the fields and the crops. We'll also share stories from the people who live, work, and thrive here in Cherokee County, Alabama. So pull up a chair, maybe grab a cup of coffee, and join us as we talk about life on and off the farm. All right, today I am joined by our very own Stephen Hall and Nick Hughes, make 2/3 up of Cherokee Farmers managers, location managers. Just give a brief introduction of who you are. We'll start with Stephen.
Okay, I'm Stephen Hall, originally from DeKalb County, but been with the co-op system off and on for about the past 25 years. Was a manager in DeKalb for a while, did a few stints at Talladega and Jackson County in there, and also worked for a couple of distributors and been here at the co-op at Center since end of October. So,
I'm Nick. I manage Cherokee Farmers Co-op Piedmont. I'm originally from Locust Grove, Georgia. Ended up getting into ag when I was about 14, 15 years old. Worked in some ag jobs throughout high school and went to Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College in Tifton and earned my degree in ag business. Farmed for a little while and ended up moving up here in April of 23.
And we're missing Tommy Thomas. He's our location manager at Jacksonville, so there'll be another time we can get him on the podcast. But it's the reason why we're so late is basically was trying to get all of us together at one time. And when you're trying to manage these stores, even though we are Cherokee Farmers Co-op, Center, Piedmont, and Jacksonville, we share the same thing, but we're different. So it's kind of when one of us are busy, maybe the other one's not, and when the other ones don't have anything going on, then it's hard trying to get us all together. But I am Seth Eubanks. I'm General Manager of Cherokee Farmers Co-op. I'm originally from South Georgia, South Alabama. I grew up around Albany, Georgia. Granddaddy had a farm when I was growing up, and it kind of got me wanting to be in agriculture. My mom kind of wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer, and funny as how I end up here being the manager of the co-op is very true to what I always wanted to do. I'm not farming, but to me, I think it's the best thing. But one thing we want to do today is kind of introduce people what Cherokee Farmers Co-op is about, what we do here, and probably the main thing that we kind of hear a lot going on is a lot of people don't realize that they think they have to be a member of the co-op to shop with us. That is false. You do not have to be a member. Although we are locally owned by our members and our farmers, anybody can just come in and shop with us. So I don't know how that got started as to who needed to be a member just to shop with us, but that is false. Anybody can come shop with us. We'd love to have you. Like I said, we're locally owned by our members and by our farmers. So there's no big box operations. And another misleading thing is all co-ops are different. Kind of like what I said earlier. We all have different prices according to, how we get things delivered in here and at the store. So, you may go to DeKalb or go to Morgan. There may be some slight differences in pricing and what people offer and services and stuff like that. So just kind of wanted to clear that up. Anything that you might want to add? You've been at several different locations.
Well, as I was saying, the demographics in each area is kind of different, and even our 3 stores there's some differences in those as far as products, what people are coming in and getting, and that type of thing. So, we have some different services we offer at the different ones that maybe we don't offer at the other one, but we're always open to suggestions. If there's something that, some folks are looking for, we're always open to, try some new things and get some different products in, because we try to carry everything, but, that's impossible. Everybody can't carry everything. And what sells at Nick's store may not sell here. So, or vice versa. So, but like I say, it is different. And like I say, throughout the co-op system, it's different. So you're going to get a different experience at every store you go to. So,
right. Nick, you've been at 2 different locations. Can you see a difference between Center and Piedmont? And what are they that you've experienced?
Well, I mean, you come up to Center, it's more agronomy than anything else. And I mean, you come down to Piedmont, we do a lot of agronomy, but we also have, a bunch of walk-in customers. And I feel like Piedmont, to me, from what I've seen, is kind of a mixture between the two, so to speak, because there's a lot of stuff that I carry that y'all may not carry, or, me and Tommy may carry it, right. So I just feel like, there's some of it, they're a lot of different, but they're a lot in the same.
Yeah,
too.
we're probably, Center and Piedmont's probably more, how I look at Piedmont is kind of like a little sister to what Center is. Very, very similar. We're a lot more of the cotton row crop side, which is more of the grain, corn and soybeans. And then Tommy is a whole different ball game down there. He does a lot of development projects, hauling stuff, landscape stuff. So his clientele and what he sees on a daily basis is really complete opposite. If you stuck me in Jacksonville, I would have no idea on how to handle that down there. And then I've heard Tommy, say the same way. If we stuck him up here in the agriculture and the row crop side of it, it'd be, kind of the same situation. So that's one thing we're kind of trying to get out there. And I don't know, kind of how this old podcast started up is I just had basically what we're going to do is, do a lot of storytelling with our growers. If we can get our growers in here, I know it's going to be challenging as we're getting our busy season. But I wanted to let our listeners know and understand what goes on a day-to-day basis, life on and off the farm, as to what our name and title says. A lot of these growers have got some interesting stories on how they've ended up where they are today, and the challenges they face is very, very interesting. And we just want to give that to our listeners and kind of reach out there, maybe get to another side of our customers that don't normally see on a day-to-day basis, and just realize who we are and what we do. We're just not agriculture. We do garden, lawn. I mean, basically, if it feeds or eats, we feed it. There's just so much that we do that a lot of people don't really understand. And like I said, it's really interesting. How did you become, or how'd you end up in the co-op system, Stephen?
Well,
that's one thing I want to get to is
how I ended up. It was kind of.
I mean, did you grow up thinking you was going to be work at a retail agricultural store? Or?
No, actually, when I grew up, my grandparents had layer houses, and so I got into the FFA when I was in middle school and became an officer and different things. And So I thought, well, I like agriculture. I think I could really do this because I didn't want to do anything that was in with a lot of math and that kind of stuff. But I had a professor that I knew from Snead State, and he ended up being my ag teacher at Snead, and went to his house one day, and he said, would you like to go into agriculture? And I said, yes, sir. That's why I'm coming to find out from you. And he said, well, poultry's big if you want to stay in the state of Alabama. And he said, but if you don't like to smell chicken poop, I don't advise going into poultry science. And so I said, okay, well, what else do we have to look at? And he said, well, let's do, what about agricultural business and economics? So I did 2-year stint at Snead, and then went to Auburn and got into the ag economics classes. And Marvin Julick, who was the, at the time, management service director or whatever, he was down there for our internship class, and everybody was trying to get internship for the summer. And I said, Mr. Julick, does AFC offer internships? And he said, nope. I said, okay, I appreciate it, and turned around. He said, oh, wait, boy. He said, I didn't say we wouldn't do one. So I did an internship with AFC, and in the meantime, Robert Slade had came in and taken his spot. So they put me at Geraldine, which was good because it was about 5 minutes from the house. So I got an internship for the class, plus got paid that summer. And so I got involved with the co-op. And so worked that summer. The next year, Robert Slate did interviews at Auburn for manager trainees. Well, I was down there. He interviewed me, and he said, well, you look kind of familiar. And I said, well, I did an internship with y'all the summer before. And he said, okay, well, you got a job. You just call them and tell them. So I ended up going to work at Stevenson as a trainee, stayed there 6 months, went back to the Geraldine store, stayed there about 2 years, and then went and ran the grain elevator at Talladega for about 2 years, and then got a job with Faithway, and then stayed with them almost 20 years, and then went to another distributor called West Plains, and then I ended up back over here because Nick, when he was at this store, and Seth, they were buying a few items from me from West Plains, so that's how we all kind of got connected. But that's sort of how I kind of fell into the getting with the AFC side and with the getting into the agriculture there part.
Now, how much has AFC or the kind of co-op has changed since when you first started to where we are today? I mean, have you seen much change or?
There's a pretty good bit of change. I was telling you earlier, I said, it's going to take me a year just to get back to learn how to ride the bicycle again. Years ago we had ammonium nitrate, we had to get driver's license, and there was some paperwork that went along with it. But, even the products changed. We were doing a lot of ammonium nitrate, DAP, and potash was basically, and, the filler was what we were basically doing all the fertilizer analysis off of. Now you got all this different things. You got the urea and the MES4s and all that kind of stuff that I was like, what in the world? I've never even figured none of this stuff by the time I came back in. So that's changed. And used to, in that, when I first came into the system, there were more farmers, but it was a smaller scale. You had a lot of these little truck farmers and guys with just little small dump trucks and stuff
Right.
was hauling grain. Now you got guys that's got equipment that can plant rows and rows and rows at a time, and they got 18-wheelers hauling grain and that kind of thing. And so, with technology, you've got guys that's been able to get bigger areas, but your actual number of folks is kind of really probably, I don't know the numbers, but looks like just about half of what they used to be.
That's one thing, we kind of see a lot of our growers are kind of dwindling down and getting on the age and retiring, and there's very few that's kind of coming in and taking their spot. And that's one thing that, kind of concerns us a little bit is it's not everybody can just, hey, I want to be a farmer and go out to do it. And in today's time, it's hard to get the credit that they need to actually grow a crop. And, that's very challenging. And a lot of, Well, we've seen Nick. You've only been here a short time. You've experienced some changes. Kind of what have you seen?
Well, it's like you said, you know, the older generation, you know, they're getting close to retirement, some of them, and, you know, obviously some of them are just going to keep going, which is always great, but, you know, you don't see that young generation hardly anymore. Where I came from down in South Georgia, there was a good many to, you know, fill the shoes, but not so much around here. I got a few more in Piedmont, man, that younger generation guys that are going to be some really, really good ones.
Right. Well, as we kind of asked Stephen, you know, you kind of mentioned you growing up and stuff, but what kind of brought you to being the manager here at a farmers co-op? I know you didn't invest and say, hey, I want to grow up and be a manager of the co-op. And how did you stumble? How did that path come across?
Well, I grew up coming over here to Center. My grandparents owned a lake property on Weiss Lake, and you know, I grew up coming over here. Is probably my favorite place in the world, being on the water. And you know, I got into ag, and when I first got into ag, my dream was always to farm. I always knew I wanted to end up in South Georgia for a stint, so I had a good mentor coming through the ag industry, Jake Carter down in McDonough, Georgia, has Southern Bell Farm, and you know, he kind of pushed me into, you know, getting into ag, and ended up going to ABAC, and met some really good connections down there, and farmed for a little bit, worked for University of Georgia, and one of my college roommates who actually works for Talladega Trip, he came over, started working for Talladega, and he told me that there was a position open up here in Center. Well, I met Andrew Dempsey and Tripp at Career Connections at ABAC. Tripp graduated a year ahead of me, and got to talking to Andrew. Andrew put me in contact with you, and at the time, it just wasn't the time for me to, you know, pack everything up and move, and got out of school, you know, continued to farm with the Johnstons, farm cotton and peanuts, and felt like the Lord was leading me here, so I gave you a call and moved up here pretty quick.
Well, I appreciate it. Both of y'all have been, you know, unanswered prayer, basically. Kind of how I ended up here in Center and being the general manager of the Cherokee Farmers Co-op. Like I said, I grew up in South Georgia. Granddaddy had a farm. He had a herd, you know, cows, pecan orchard, raised peanuts, a little bit of cotton. And I was always drawn to that livelihood. And, you know, my mother always said, well, farmers don't make a lot of money. I said, well, you know, I got to watching him. I said, well, he might not make a lot of money, but he surely enjoys, you know, what he's doing. The prices may not always be right in his favor, but you can tell, you know, farming is a way of life, and that he absolutely enjoyed what he done. And I remember I used to go to a school and rent off Southern in Shelburne, and I had to go by his farm in the mornings. And I remember kind of going by, and my granddaddy had a pecan orchard, and he'd always go to the local town, Shelburne, and get anybody that wanted to work to come out there and pick pecans. So I'd ride by there, and I'd see everybody out there, and all of a sudden I'd get a stomach ache, or I didn't feel like I was too sick to go to school. And I said, Daddy, I can't go to school. My stomach hurts. Well, he said, well, I got to go to work. What are we going to do? I said, just drop me off with Granny and Don at the farm. And I said, they'll take care of me. I guarantee you that no sooner than his dust settled out of the driveway, I was out there picking up pecans. So I was always drawn to it. And like I said, I moved to Alabama, graduated high school right outside of Dothan in Ashford, Alabama. And eventually went to college as a physical therapist at Huntington College, and played football. And one summer during the break, I made a mistake, or I don't know if call it a mistake is pretty well been good to me. Is I come up to Center and, you know, started working on the farm at the time, and just, you know, fell in love with this area. And it was really hard to go back. And when I was in college, I also worked for UPS. So as the opportunity strikes, I had a chance to move up here. And started working on the farm and when working at UPS in the mornings. And I worked my way up to UPS as being a supervisor. And I was working kind of being, a driver and still had a strong tug at, farming. I wanted to do that. Whatever I done, I knew I wanted to be in that aspect of it. So coming up here, in the summer, coming to the co-op, getting fertilizer and getting chemicals and stuff. Larry Leslie was the manager at the time. I'd heard Burt Williams was the assistant manager, and I heard he was leaving. He'd just got chicken houses, and he was going to quit the co-op. So I knew there was an opening, and I come up here and talked to Mr. Larry, and I said, "Hey," I said, "have you found anybody to take Burt's position?" And he kind of looked at me and said, "No." He said, "Are you interested?" And I said, "Yes, sir." Not knowing at the time, what I was getting into, but I knew it was something different that I wanted to be involved in because it was very close to agriculture. And so anyway, I met with Byron. He was the trainee. He was over the trainees at AFC at the time. And we done an interview, and I guess I must have said the right words because next thing I know, I got hired. And like I said, I worked with Larry, under Larry as assistant manager. I think it was in 2011, 2012. And then just, day to day, I've done a lot of fertilizer spreading with him, kind of, learned. I didn't go into college as an athletic trainer. I didn't have an ag background, but what I did know is I learned as I kept going. And got involved with everything I could. And then I think 2015, Larry retired, and then Andrew Dempsey became the general manager of Cherokee Farmers Co-op. And with him coming general manager, he replaced me as the store manager. So I kind of worked my way up that, and then I learned, and I'm very thankful for Andrew. He taught me, he was not knocking Larry, but Andrew taught me a lot of different stuff on a daily basis about, about the management side of it, and got me really involved in the I guess the management stuff. But I owe a lot to Andrew, and then I think, was it 21, I believe, is Andrew. He decided to go to Bigger, Better Things, Vice President Manager Services in Decatur. And then somehow I think it was actually, I was on my honeymoon in Mexico. And next thing I know, I come back, and Andrew asked me, he said, "Hey, I want you to be a general manager." I said, "Oh, hold on, wait a minute. I don't know if I'm ready for that." And he said, "I think you are." I said, "Man, that's a big step for me. I'm really cautious. I don't just jump out there, and get over my head too deep." But he said, I really think you are." And like I said, I kind of went to Mexico on a honeymoon with my wife, and then come back, and next thing he's like, "You're going to be the general manager." I was like, "Okay." So that happened in 21, and this 2025, and like I said, this is the best job I ever had. I love it. Getting to talk to farmers every day. I'm not actually farming, but it's the next best thing. I've got so many farmers, that we try to take care of, and our farmers are very important to us. I mean, if they wouldn't, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing, obviously. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of how we ended up here. And like I said, it's been awesome. Cherokee Farmers Co-op's awesome to me. I think we got some of the best farmers probably in the United States. I mean, they're a real pleasure to work with, and I don't like one least than the other. I mean, they're all different, and they're I guess let's say they're family. Mm-hmm. But that's generally kind of how we ended up where we are today, and we wouldn't be here if it wouldn't for our farmers, and then too. We got some good employees, really great employees that really, take pride in what they do and really enjoy, with their growers coming in and visiting with them. So this year is probably, maybe since I've been here in 2011, probably the most challenging year. Been starting to see the most challenging spring that I probably experienced. I don't know, Stephen, had you remember any tough years kind of when you grow up coming up in the system, or?
There was years where we had droughts and stuff like that was already in it. This is sort of this time's been kind of odd because it's been a pre thing because everybody sees what the prices are going, and there's, there's some uncertainty on some tariffs and that kind of stuff that kind of plays into this year. Everybody's sort of, I guess, a little more on guard than normal. They're kind of holding back a little bit. They don't, a lot of years where you can see kind of what things are going to be the outcome. You go, okay, well, I'm going to risk a little more. I'm going to plan a little more of this or do this different and, roll the dice a little more. I think this year people's kind of playing close to their heart to what they actually are going to do. So I think it's kind of, that's what makes it kind of difficult this time is people are a lot more kind of waiting out some things to kind of see, but it's getting time to plant. So it's kind of, it's really not a year to really get excited about.
Yeah.
It's sort of, everybody is kind of, you're getting through the process and you're getting ready for it, but you can't be as, sort of gun-ho about it, because you're like, usually you're like, there's this big prize. If I can just make it to it, I can go. And then this year it's sort of like, I don't know what is going to be at the end. So do I risk? Do I hold back? What do I do? So it's kind of a guessing game at this point. So.
What probably a lot of people don't realize is, a farmer, he buys everything retail, but turns around and has to sell everything wholesale.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't really get any cuts or anything like that. So it's our job, is what we try to, get with AFC and then, Greenpoint Agri, who we buying from is trying to get the best price because we know, the commodity prices is not looking good right now for a row crop side. The cattle market and range and pasture guys, I think they're doing pretty good. I mean, it's about time they are, but it's hardly ever a year where both of them are doing great.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what we're kind of struggling with now is the row crop side of it, the commodity prices. I think our local gin here, bales about 95,000 bales of cotton. So we're really big, cotton territory up here. And I think the commodity price on cotton was like, 62 cents?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's crazy.
On the nearby this morning, I think it was like 66.
Yeah, so it was coming up, but we needed about 80 to 90, really like $1.
Yeah.
It's been averaging about 65 ever since for the past while.
That's one of the big struggles we're seeing, and a lot of people don't really kind of understand that. And, the reason why is the demand's not there. So we need to do everything we can to get the demand back up so these guys can, at least make a profit. And we got to keep these guys rolling, making money. So. Trying to see what else. See, I got some questions here. I'm going to kind of ask y'all. What is the most rewarding part of your job as an agricultural and retail store manager? Nick, I'm going to start with you.
All right. Man, my favorite part about it is, we have these customers that come in and sometimes they want to talk business, but, I've tried to make it a point to have, just a normal, casual relationship with them too. So, sometimes they come in just to talk. They tell me stories about, how things used to be and, good years they've had and, and really just have normal conversations. We talk hunting, fishing. I mean, that's my favorite part about it is just having that relationship with them outside of business, and, that's one thing I told you when I started here is, I kind of understand what it's like to be on the other side of the counter, so to speak. And, the co-op we were in down in South Georgia, that's the kind of relationship we have with them, not just business, but also, a personal relationship with them as well.
Stephen, what's the most rewarding part of your job?
I kind of go with what Nick was saying. A lot of those customers, you have tough years on the crops and that kind of thing, but also, a lot of these farmers, they have, you you share with the joys and the bad times with them too. So, if they have a sickness in their family or something happens to them or something bad or something good, you kind of experience that with them. And then if something happens to you, it's good or bad, they kind of, like I say, it's kind of like all of our customers are more than just customers. They end up being family because you see them on a regular basis, and sometimes you see them more than you do your family some weeks.
Right.
So it's
Absolutely.
you kind of build that bond, and it just helps you later on. And customers I've had 25 years ago, I still see them out places and stuff, and you still kind of talk about things that you knew then or about them or whatever. And so, and like I say, they share stories and that kind of stuff with you. But and at the end of the day, too, we kind of, it's not just our farmers, but the community.
Right.
I mean, it's a service for the whole community. And so, at the end of the day, you think, well, look, I did something good, hopefully, out of all this that helps, somebody who helps somebody else who helps the whole community. So we're all in a big group together. So
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I mean, we rejoice with our growers when they have something good, and then also we're so close to them that we grieve with them. We lost a really good customer that we really last year. They really kind of bothered me a little bit. And that was the whole reason of starting this podcast, because this individual that we lost at what I feel at a very young age, but I grew to know him not just as a customer, but as family. And every time I seen him out, we'd talk and all this kind of stuff. We'd cut up, and then all of a sudden he's not with us anymore, and it's like, man, And I called him a couple of weeks, but actually before, we lost him, and just to check on him because he hadn't come in a while. And that's one thing I do is that we see everybody pretty much on a regular basis, and when that slows down and we stop seeing them, we have a call. Hey, what's up? What's going on? Is there anything I can help you? And then I made the phone call, and he was trying to tell me some problems. I said, well, let me know. Do we need to come up there and help you? Is there anything we can do on the farm to help you? I said, free of charge. Just want to get you back. And then just a few weeks later we lost him. That really bothered me a little bit. Is, man, could I done something else or done a little bit more? And that's what really kind of started the want to do this podcast, is to get these growers in here and share their stories, because we've got those stories. I've got stories of this gentleman, and then we've all got different stories about him. But his story is, now lost out of his mouth, and that's why we kind of wanted to start this podcast, to get these growers in here and tell their story. That way we've got it forever, and also give it a chance for our listeners to kind of understand and what goes on kind of on and off the farm. It's just not, hey, we're just out here checking cows and all that. There's a lot more into it that a lot of people don't really understand. Mm-hmm. And help connect, build that bridge, and gap those differences and understand. So the next question, and I know you've got a good memorable story. I don't know if you want to tell it on here, but it may be a good one. Kind of what everybody remembers. Everybody might not remember who you are, but remember what happened to you. But my next question is kind of, can you share a memorable or funny experience, which yours was not quite funny, even though we're laughing about it. But Stephen, would you want to kind of tell that kind of story? You weren't working with us long, or with AFC long, when that happened, eh?
Let's see. I'd been there probably 3 years, I guess. What he's referring to is the drowning accident.
Drowning. I mean, come on. How are you going to drown at a farmer's co-op? I mean, you got to.
Okay.
Because there's going to be a lot of people like, well, did you get in the water tank?
No, I didn't follow the water tank. No. So every year, AFC has a managers meeting. And at that time, they had it in Fort Walton. And so there was a group of all those trainees were down there. And they kind of, if you're a trainee, they got you kind of doing a lot of stuff down there, So you're not really vacationing. It's actually meetings and that kind of stuff. So we get down there, and it gets to Friday, and some of the trainees are like, hey, listen, we've been out here all week. We've not even been to the beach. So we go out, and I'm like, I can't swim that well, And they said, oh, no, we're not going way out in the water. We're going on the sandbar. You can stand up at it. Red flags are up. I hadn't been to the beach that much, so I don't know. So we get out to the first sandbar, and I'm short, so the waves are high, but I'm thinking, this is normal. I ain't been to the beach. We go out to the second sandbar, and so I turned to look back at the beach, and the last thing I remember was getting pushed down, and when I woke up, it was the next afternoon in the hospital. I had got caught in a rip current, and it dragged me across the bottom. I had scratches from all the shells and rocks and all this. Luckily, a Navy SEAL was down there. I heard the people screaming, went out, and he said that I was about 400 yards out from where we were and 200 yards down the beach from where we started, and I was purple and floating on my stomach. So I don't remember any of this, but they said that you see Baywatch and David Hasselhoff do the slow motion. They said, no, this dude looked like he was walking on water for about 5 foot before he even dove in. And then he tried to tread water and do CPR because he knew they wasn't much chance. So he said with all the combat training that that was the most exhausting he'd ever been. He said he got to the beach. His legs was like jello. He handed me off to the ambulance drivers, and he said, I just collapsed. And so I said, well, I really, really appreciate what you did. And he goes, it wasn't me. He goes, if I hadn't have had something bigger pushing me, he said, I would have never made it. He said, so you need to thank God, not just me. And so anyways, going back to some stories and some people we've lost, and I've always really, really, really respected him for this, was David Tierce, which is a co-op manager in DeKalb, because I was at the drilling location. He was in Crossville. Him and Mark Searles, who is at the co-op at Abbotsville now, he was our Merrill rep. And they called David and said, there's been an accident. You need to get the emergency room. David said, had no idea who it was, what had happened, but I was going. And he said, when I got there, he goes, I beat the ambulance. And he said, when they rolled you off on the gurney, he said, I still didn't know who it was. He said, there was so much sand covering your body. The only thing I saw was lips where they were doing CPR.
Wow.
And he said, when they got closer, they told me who it was. And he said, I had to, they wanted us to call, because at the time I still lived with my parents. And he said, we're not calling parents and telling them that over the phone. So he called my secretary, and she got one of the farmers, which, like I say, goes back to farmers are like family. Mm-hmm. He said, I will ride with you. He said, but I'm going to let you do the talking. And she said, oh, I'll talk, but you drive because I need support. So she went and told my parents about it, and they said that's the fastest trip they ever made to Florida. But luckily, no brain damage that I know of. But the thing was, it was like that day at lunch, I was like, wow, this is awesome. They were like, we're going to actually make you the manager of the store, because they were just letting me be kind of assistant at the time, even though we didn't have a manager there. And then, and I had a car, and I found some seats for it that I've been looking for months for. And so I'm like, well, I'm on top of the world at lunchtime. And then by 5 o'clock, it almost ended. So, you don't really take life for granted, because, you may be on top of the world at lunch, but you may not make it to dinner time. So it gives you a big different perspective. And then, like say, years later with a family and stuff like that, you really start to think about some stuff like that, time is precious, and stories are, once they're gone, they're gone.
Right. And you did stay in contact with the Marine that actually saved you.
Yes. And he is actually retired now. And we still talk about once a year, and he still lives up in Virginia Beach. And, but the funny thing is, we didn't know they were Navy SEALs. We got there, we saw these fatigues over the railings, and we're like, man, they're making these guys wash their clothes and hang it out to dry on the, and, Tommy Polk was the actual the president of AFC at the time, and he kept pressing on him, and the guy said, "No, I'm here for business. I'm here for business." Well, his business was he was a Navy SEAL. He just really couldn't say that, but he actually did get a medal and stuff out of the deal.
That's awesome.
But he's still about once a year we still talk, and a funny thing about it is the secretary, once she got back to work, my aunt was actually one of my customers and came in to buy some horse feed, and she goes, "Oh, where's Stephen at?" She didn't know I'd gone to Florida, and the secretary said, "Oh, he drowned." So she breaks down in the store and says, "Oh my gosh, nobody told me that he anything happened to him." And then the secretary goes, "Oh, but he's okay." She goes, "You just said he drowned." She goes, "I don't mean to death." So yeah, so there was we had a whole big discussion about drowning and drowning to death, but
Right.
That's
a good story. Good. Well, I'm glad for the Marine there that saved you. Glad that you're a part of Cherokee Farmers Co-op. So, yeah. And then too, as we go on, we've got more stories we'll kind of share. Working here at the co-op, we can probably write a book.
Oh yeah.
Then I'll pass it on to Nick. Do you have any? Just a few years you've been here, you got any memorable stories? I know some things happen with some tank stuff, but we might not necessarily want to talk about that. But is anything kind of memorable or funny happened since you've been up here? Or
let's see,
good experiences?
There's probably one tank we can talk man. So for anybody that knows, we carry liquid cow feed. It's called a Stimulate. Well, I got a 6,500 gallon tank of it, and I had just gotten a load in.
Now, what did I tell you? What I told you is take a baseball bat. I warned you because I had a feeling about this thing.
No, this was after this one.
That
was after this one.
Okay, my bad.
So we had just gotten a load in, and we had gotten it in on Friday, and it's down, we sell gravel and sand, stuff like that. So it's all down there with it. Well, we had no business to go down there Friday, Saturday, closed on Sunday, and didn't go down there all day Monday, but we were cleaning up some stuff and hauling it off. And one of my guys, Richard, was taking some stuff out there. And I was watching him, and all of a sudden he just slammed on the brakes on the forklift, and he turns around, starts running at me, and I'm like, what is going on? I figured something had stung him. I didn't know what was going on. And then he calls me and he's like, "Bring the whatever, bring me something." And I'm like, "What's going on?" He's like, "The tank's leaking." I was like, "Oh my word." And so I take off down there. Darren follows behind me with duct tape of all things. And by that point, it had probably been leaking all weekend. Right. And, we ended up losing 3,500 gallons out of it. So
that wasn't very long before you was in Piedmont, or it was about a few months, something
probably
like that.
6 or 7 months.
Welcome.
Yeah. I figured out.
But
real
everything's
quick.
good. We got it all cleaned up.
Yeah.
I think we got a truck down there and kind of get got some pumped out and got everything. But I'm telling you, these stories that will come at whoever's listening. We've got so many of them. And probably I've got one it was not long after I started being one of the main spreader operators here and, spreading fertilizer for our customers. And I don't know if I've ever spread on you, I go above and beyond or try to, because I look at everything and I'm not saying all of the rest of our operators aren't the same way. They take pride in what they do, and they approach every job and every field like it's their own, and they want to do the best, because we know that, if we don't do a good job, then that's our customer's livelihood. So probably the biggest first job I ever had was sowing some wheat and fertilizer for Mr. Johnny Chandler up in Cedar Bluff. And, I'm nervous. This is my main. I spread a little bit of fertilizer, but this was probably my biggest job, at the time that I've had. And so I get the job done. I'm carrying, of course, we pan test, get everything looking good on the pan test, and come back. Well, a few weeks later, Mr. Johnny comes in, and I asked him, I said, how's that wheat looking? He said, I'm going to tell you the truth. He said, that's the worst job I think I've ever seen. And I was like, oh no, this is not good. This this is not good. So every other day, probably for, 4 or 5 weeks, I would get off work and I didn't have a company truck. I was using my own gas money. I'd go up there. I was like, man, what in the world? What's he seeing? What's wrong with this? I don't see any streaking. I don't see any gaps in it. And I said, this looks pretty darn good. And like I said, this goes on for 4 weeks, and I'm just trying to find out if this is the worst job he's ever done. I want to see the best job he's ever done because, I can't find anything wrong with it. Well, eventually, things work down, and I'm literally losing sleep over this because, I take pride in what we do. And finally he comes in. I said, Mr. Johnny, I said, I've been up there countless times every other day. Seems like I'm it's not that far, but it is a lot of gas money when you're going up there and you can't find anything wrong. Well, like I said, Mr. Johnny comes in and I pull him aside. All right, I said, Mr. Johnny, I said, tell me. I need to know if I'm going to get any better, if I'm going to get any rest at night, any sleep. Tell me what is wrong with that crop, that wheat crop. He just smiled and said, man, I'm just messing with you. He said, that's the best crop I ever had. I said, are you serious? Man, if you only knew the lack of sleep that I've had and the amount of money it's cost me to go check on that. But that's what we do. That's what we take pride in what we do. As employees, I probably can speak for the employees here. Our operators, even the guys that load the feed and stuff, we do take pride in what we do. Now, everybody, can have a bad day. We know that. But we really enjoy what we do. If we wouldn't, we'd be doing something else. There's probably a lot of other easier jobs out there we could probably make a living at, but we choose this. This is kind of like a way of life, kind of like our farmers. I mean, agriculture is a way of life for them. But guys, I think we're going on right now at 45 minutes. Was there anything that y'all would like to add? I think this has been a pretty good first podcast. Y'all probably. I don't know what y'all thought when I come up with this idea, and like I said, I know it's probably been jumping around and stuff, but we wanted to kind of get the first one out there. I hate we're missing Tommy. We'll get Tommy in here on another time and let him. Tommy's got some stories. I'm telling you, he is full of stories. So I love to get him in here, maybe and he share his side of how he ended up being the manager in Jacksonville. But like I said, I think this is going to be a good thing for us, Cherokee Farmers Co-op, and help our listeners and, get to know more about who we are and what we do, and then also get a chance to hear these grower stories and their life of how they started and what they've experienced along the way and what their challenges they're facing today, which there's many of them. But that's kind of all I've got for today. And again, I appreciate y'all being here, and I appreciate y'all as managers. I don't know where I'd be without y'all, and that's the truth. And
we appreciate you and what you do for us too.
So thank y'all. We'll call that a wrap.
All right.